Before the world sped up, before screens filled our homes and noise filled our heads, there was a time when life moved slower and meant more. From the 1950s through the 1970s, America was a different place. Families gathered around the dinner table. Kids played freely until the streetlights came on. Neighbors knew your name and you answered the door without checking who's there. It wasn't perfect, but it was personal. In this video, we won't talk about the big historical moments. Instead, we'll remember the small joys, the things that filled your days and warmed your heart. A bike ride, a summer breeze, a handwritten letter. These are the memories that still live inside us. Quiet, ordinary, and yet unforgettable. So sit back, breathe deep, and let's rewind together. These are 10 simple joys that made growing up in mid-century America truly special. Part 1. Lazy summer afternoons. Do you remember how summer felt back then? Not just the heat, but the freedom. The kind of freedom that came with a peanut butter sandwich in your hand and grass stains on your knees. There were no scheduled camps, no smartphones buzzing with notifications. Just you, your bike, and a whole day ahead. The world felt safe. Parents didn't hover. We left the house after breakfast and returned only when the sun dipped low. Kids played stickball in the streets, splashed through sprinklers, or just lay in the grass watching clouds pass. The air smelled of fresh-cut lawns and someone grilling hot dogs down the street. And the sound? It wasn't noise, it was life. Cicadas in the trees. Radios playing distant tunes. A neighbor calling out your name for dinner. Those summer days weren't just fun. They taught us how to be free, how to find joy without spending a dime, and how to slow down, something we all forget now. Part 2. Sitting on the front porch. In every neighborhood, the front porch was its own little world. It wasn't just part of the house, it was where life happened. Mornings with coffee in the paper, afternoons with iced tea, evenings with fireflies and the soft creak of the swing. You waved to neighbors walking by, talked about the weather, shared small gossip, big laughs, and sometimes quiet silences. The porch didn't need a screen, you were already connected. It was also a place of learning. You watched how grown-ups talked, how they listened. You heard stories from old-timers, learned whose tomatoes were ripe this week, and which kid down the street got a new bike. People lived on the porch, and they connected. Without apps, without devices, just face-to-face. And maybe that's what we miss today. That sense that you could step outside and belong. That no one was too busy to talk. That being present was enough. Part 3. The magic of a handwritten letter. Before text messages and notifications, there was a kind of magic in checking the mailbox. A real letter, handwritten, folded carefully, maybe even sealed with a kiss, could light up your whole week. It wasn't instant. It took thought, time, and effort. And that's what made it special. When you got a letter from a friend or loved one, you felt them. In the penmanship, the choice of words, even the occasional smudge of ink. The envelope was a small gift, a piece of someone's time and heart. And when you wrote back, you chose your words with care. You told stories. You described your days. You asked questions you really hoped would be answered. We saved those letters, tied them in ribbons, kept them in drawers, because they were more than paper. They were proof that we mattered to someone. Maybe it's time we bring that back, writing not to inform but to connect. Part 4. Dime stores and everyday wonders. You didn't need a mall to feel wonder, just a dime store. Woolworths, Kresge's, Ben Franklin. These stores were like treasure chests. The wooden floors creaked beneath your feet. The air smelled like popcorn and wax paper. And with just $1 you could buy joy. There were rows of colorful candy, glass jars full of marbles, racks of coloring books and paper dolls. Your mom might pick up some sewing thread. You might grab a toy cap gun or a pack of gum. And let's not forget the lunch counter. A grilled cheese sandwich. A root beer float. The simplest things tasted like magic when served on a red stool by a smiling waitress. Those stores taught us that happiness didn't need to be expensive. It just needed to be honest. Touched by human hands and human hearts. The dime store wasn't just a place to shop. It was a place to dream. Part 5. Family dinners at the table. There was something sacred about dinner time. Not because of what was on the plate, though roast beef or meatloaf sure hit the spot, but because of what it meant. Every evening the family came together. No TV, no distractions, just conversation. You sat at the same spot every night. You passed the rolls. You waited your turn. And while you ate, you listened to your parents, to your siblings, to the rhythm of home life. That table was where life happened, where announcements were made, scoldings were delivered, laughter was shared, where you learned how to speak and how to listen. Even when times were tight, there was food and warmth and love. Today it's easy to eat on the go, to microwave something alone. But back then, dinner wasn't just a meal. It was a moment, a daily reminder that you belonged somewhere. Part 6. Radio days and the soundtrack of our lives. Long before streaming and endless playlists, there was the radio, and it was enough. The radio wasn't just background noise. It was your companion, your storyteller, your jukebox, and your news anchor all in one. You'd wake up to it in the kitchen, humming along with Bing Crosby or Patsy Cline. You'd hear the announcer's friendly voice as your dad shaved before work. Kids waited for the Saturday morning serials, The Lone Ranger, Fibber McGee and Molly. The whole family gathered around to listen, not to look. The sound of the radio, warm, a little crackly, gave the house a heartbeat. And the best part? You didn't choose the song. You discovered it. You waited, hoped, cheered when your favorite came on. It taught us patience, taught us to listen. And it made music feel alive, not just played but shared. Part 7. Saturday morning cartoons and simple joys. There was no greater excitement than waking up early on a Saturday, not for chores, not for school, but for cartoons. With a bowl of cereal in your lap and no parents in sight, it felt like the world belonged to you for those few magical hours. The TV would glow with black and white or Technicolor wonder. Bugs Bunny, Popeye the Flintstones. You'd laugh, cheer, sometimes even learn a little something. There were no complicated plots, no edgy jokes. Just fun. And afterward, you went outside, played, used your imagination. Cartoons were a spark, not a replacement, for creativity. Those mornings weren't just about entertainment. They were about rhythm, a routine you could count on, a moment that was just yours in a busy household. They reminded us that joy could be simple, screen time could be gentle, and childhood could still feel innocent. Part 8. Sundays and the church bells ringing. Sunday mornings had a special kind of stillness. Streets were quiet. Stores were closed. People dressed up, not for fashion but for reverence. You could hear church bells in the distance and smell someone's aftershave or a lady's perfume as families made their way inside. Whether you were Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, or didn't attend at all, the feeling of Sunday was universal. A slower pace, a gentler tone, the sense that this day meant something more. Children squirmed in pews. Mothers passed down peppermint candies. Choirs sang old hymns that echoed in your chest. Afterward, there might be a potluck, a visit with grandma, or simply a quiet roast in the oven at home. It wasn't about dogma. It was about grounding, about pausing, reflecting, being part of something bigger than yourself. Those Sundays helped shape us, not just spiritually but socially, emotionally. They gave us rhythm and peace. Part 9. Holidays and the magic of family traditions. Back then, holidays felt earned. They didn't arrive in flashy boxes or big sales. They built up slowly with tradition. You made decorations by hand. You helped your mother bake pies. You waited all year for that moment the Christmas lights flickered on or the turkey came out of the oven. Every family had their own special ways, unique recipes, favorite ornaments, even quirky traditions like opening one gift early or singing the same song every year. There was a kind of warmth that had nothing to do with gifts. It was about presence, about the togetherness, about grandpa's stories and cousins running around the house. Those days taught us that celebration wasn't about what you got. It was about who you shared it with. And that the best memories don't come wrapped in paper. They come from hearts full of joy and homes full of love. Part 10. The local paper route and the meaning of work. For many of us, the paper route was our first real job. You'd wake up before the sun, bundle up in the cold, and toss newspapers onto porches. Sometimes a little too far, sometimes just right. It wasn't glamorous, but it was yours. You learned responsibility. Rain or shine, people counted on you. You remembered addresses, handled coins and change, and smiled when old Mrs. Murphy gave you a nickel tip. That paper route didn't just teach you work ethic. It taught you independence, pride, The feeling that even as a kid you could earn something. Not from an allowance but through effort. And let's be honest, the best part? That quiet morning stillness. Streets empty. Birds waking. The world just beginning. It was a sacred kind of peace. And by the time the sun rose, you had already done your part. That feeling stays with you, even now. Not everything about the past was easy, but so much of it was good. The kind of good that lingers. The kind that shaped who we are, how we love, how we talk, how we live. These weren't big, flashy moments. They were ordinary joys. But maybe that's the point. Maybe what really makes life special isn't the milestones. It's the rhythm in between. A song on the radio. A rocking chair on the porch. A slice of pie shared with someone who listens. So if you find yourself longing for those golden days, know this. They're still with you. In every story you tell. Every lesson you pass on. Every quiet evening spent with someone you love. Let's keep remembering. Let's keep sharing. Because the past isn't gone. It's part of us. Always.